Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flames of War battle report. Hope you're all well. Today's mission is going to be Bocage Country. So this is from the British book. It's going to be a bit of a smaller table than we're used to, but this is just again more practice for the Khan campaign, of which there'll be a few terrain squares with Bocage. So again, as many of my generals used to fighting in such terrain, it's not the nicest place to go. Both fairly elite lists, and nice to see a debut for the formation for the Commando Troop, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. So we have them in front of us. So this is the first formation for Dave, a commando section. So we have a HQ of 2 SMG teams, and then we have 2 full troops, platoons of infantry, so that's 7 rifle brand gun teams with Piat and a mortar, and then we have a full mortar section right behind of 6 tubes. There's also a second formation in Dave's force, and that is a Sherman DD squadron. So just 2 Shermans for the HQ and then 2 troops of 3. So in total just 8 Shermans here. In support we have 4 M10, but these are the 3-inch versions, so no 17-pounders for these unfortunately. And again, the Typhoons are going to see how much damage they can do this time. So 3 points left over for 100 points, so Dave has decided to take the Lucky Command card and the French Resistance Raid. So with Richard having delayed reserves, the French Resistance Raid could be quite deadly for this mission. So let's have a look what Richard is bringing. Okay, so here is Richard's Fallschrimjager formation. So we have a HQ of 2 SMG teams, and they have Panzerfausts, and then we have 2 platoons of Fallschrimjager, not full platoons as they are quite big platoons and very costly as well, so both these platoons just have 7 rifle MG teams, but both are Panzerfausts, and both of them have 2 Panzerschreck teams as well. In the formation as well we have 3 Stummel mortars, as you can see at the back, 4 heavy machine guns in a platoon, and 3 Pak-40s. In support we have 3 Fallschrimjager Stugs and a debut for 4 Jagdpanzer IVs. So having used these before, these were painted up this week. Slightly better than the Stugs just on the cross-country aspect, of which I think will be quite important in this mission. I think Bocage being everywhere. But nice solid list, plenty of anti-tank to deal with any Shermans coming a bit too close, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So let's have a look at the board, and I'm guessing it's going to be quite a lot of Bocage. Okay, so here's the table setup. As much this is pretty much all the hedgerows I've got. I just realised I could probably do with some more, and we've already basically, Rich has picked his deployment zone, which is going to be this section here. As you can see, his first objective is down, so his deployment zone extends all the way to halfway, and then Dave's is 12 inches away. So plenty of cover, as you can imagine, for Bocage. So might get onto eBay to get some more of this stuff, which is really good. And I've been assisted by this gentleman over here today. Might not be much help, very distracting. Hopefully no stray dice will go on the floor and he'll mop them up, but he's more interested in looking at the cars at the moment. So yeah, so he's there to help me today, and so we'll come back to you after deployment. Okay, so we're fully deployed. Both objectives are here, so one in the junction and then one over here. Rich has deployed both of his Fallschrimjager platoons on the right, with the MGs in the centre and the mortars in the HQ further back onto the objective. In ambush he's got his Pak-40s, and then all his self-propelled guns are in reserve. Plenty of minefields in the middle of the table, and this is how Dave is counted with his deployment. So you got the HQ and a troop of Shermans on the right, with a unit of commandos and the M10s, and then everything else is on the left with the mortars and the platoon, the HQ commandos, and 3 more Shermans. And that is deployment, and now we have first turn for Dave and his commandos. Okay, so turn one for the British, no aircraft. Dave started off by putting two of his commando teams into the minefields, and you can see here the first guy rolled a 1, so he triggered it, but luckily he survived, so these guys are pinned. The HQ Shermans and the troop behind have terrain dashed into the fields, and the M10s have tactically moved over to get some MG shots onto the MGs right in front of them. The force over here has remained stationary, waiting to soften up some targets in front of them, as the Shermans have moved over to the left to get shots onto either the guys behind this bocage or this guy on the edge of the woods here, as these guys are a bit too far back in. So let's see if there's any casualties for turn 1. Okay, so the shooting was fairly decent for the British. That 5 there is the first dice roll to range in on the Fallschrimjager here. The range mark is right underneath. So because there were 6 tubes there, Dave actually originally started with 4 misses under the template, but 3 of them converted to hits, so that was quite good, and it resulted in 2 Fallschrimjager teams dying. The 6 there is the combination of the MGs from the Shermans, so just 1 hit but no kill. And the same over here, the commando section fired with their mortar, and the guys that are in range, just the 1 hit, no kills. And the M10s did the same with the heavy machine guns, just 1 more hit, no kills. And that is it for the British turn 1, so now we go into the German turns. Okay, so Richard rallied his Fallschrimjager on a 3+, which was enough to rally them, and the last thing he did in his startup step was to bring in the ambush unit right by here. So because of the concealment, they can be within 4 inches, and of course they're not a large gun, so they can do that, because a large gun will have to be 16 inches away no matter what. So these Shermans, luckily they are in some concealment, are in a bit of trouble, but I'm sure they will prevail because of the commandos by here. So here we go into German movement. Okay, so the Pak 40s took some damage onto the Sherman HQs. So the dice here, what was required, what they rolled to hit, so they only needed 5s, and that unfortunately was the save rolls. 2 dice here for the British because Dave used his lucky card to try and equal, and then these were the firepowers. So both the HQs blown up, but that 4 is to show that the formation commander managed to jump out and get into this platoon, so the re-rolls are still going. The heavy machine guns opened up on the commandos, but luckily the bulletproof cover did help them somewhat. Over here, some of the Fallschrimjager teams opened up on the British. No casualties. As you can see, the saves that were failed resulted in no 6s. However, though, the Stummel mortars did range in right by here, and they managed to take out a Piat and pin the platoon and the formation command team. And that is it for German turn 1, so now we're going to British turn 2. Okay, so movement phase. Commandos are earning their keep, so this troop here rolled a 3, so for commandos that is enough to rally them. And similar thing happened over here. HQ got a 5 and this platoon got a 2, but because the command team is right next to them within 6 inches, a 5 was enough to rally. And bonus, Dave rolled a 6 for the aircraft to come in, and they're going to have a go at the mortars. So quite a little bit more firepower for Dave this turn, and everything is fired for the Germans, so no more pesky gone to grounds. So that's going to be a bit better. So British turn for movement. Okay, so for movement, one of the commando teams was issued an order to clear the mines, so the rest of them moved, and they are getting very close to the Pak 40s. So the Shermans, one of them has moved around, so he is in the side of the Pak 40s. Because the other 2 couldn't go around, Dave decided he wanted them to go behind the Bocage. As you can see, one made it and the other didn't. And that is it for movement. This flank is still going to stay where it is, as Dave wants to soften up the Fallschrimjager before getting committed. And that is it. So now we're going into the shoot-in. Okay, so shooting down in this corner, not quite enough to pin the Pak 40s. The M10s managed to pin down the heavy machine guns, but have had no kills. The Typhoons managed to range in on a 6, and they only hit one team on a 5. Richard then rolled a 2 for his save, and then a 3+ firepower on the rocket, which killed a mortar team, so that's quite a good exchange. The Panzerschreck was killed by the commando mortars, and there was a few sporadic shots from the Shermans that gained no more kills, and the Commando Troop has gone to ground to save themselves a bit of damage. So we look like we're going to have a little assault with the commandos and then maybe the Shermans, depending how it goes. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so that was a bit of a slaughter. One hit more and the commandos would have been stopped in their tracks. They only lost a Piat for their efforts though, which is a bit unfortunate. So 2 Pak 40s were killed outright. The commandos only need 2s to kill in assault. But the last guy, the unit leader on his own, rolled a 1. So the Pak 40 had to counterattack, but rolled a 2, unfortunately. So they have been captured. So with their victorious 4 inches, the commandos have just pushed up a little bit more. So that is quite good. Now we're going into German turn. Okay, so for the motivations, the platoon on the far right rolled a 6, so they are unpinned. The mortars, however, first rolled a 1, but then rolled a 5 thanks to the formation commander, and that 5 there is for their last stand because there's now only 2 teams left. And luckily as well, the heavy machine guns have rallied. Not yet time for the reserves. There's a strange one in the book. In the special rules bit, it says it's deep delayed, but then in the deployment section, it says immediate reserve. So we've gone with it being deep delayed since it's in the special rules section. We're not sure if this has been covered by FAQs yet. I'll have a look later. But yeah, strange to see that one. Just looks like a little typo. So now we're going into German movement for their second turn. Okay, so Richard is on the move, not as good as he wanted to. He attempted the blitz move, this platoon here, to move over to cover the central objective, but he rolled a 2. He's very good at rolling 2 for these veteran troops. If only their skill was a 2, he would be fine, but that is a bit unfortunate. Yeah, so now we're going into German shooting, and hopefully their luck will get a bit better. Okay, so for the shooting, the mortars rearranged in on their set point, pinned all 3 platoons that were under the template, but only killed 1 rifle team, even though with a repeat. But it's a bit trickier now because there's only 2 teams, so that means they have to re-roll successful hits, so it's a bit rough. The only other thing that happened, the MGs opened up on the commandos over here. They have pinned them, but unfortunately no kills. All of Dave's failed saves happened in the Bocage part. So luckily the bulletproof cover saved them. And that is it for the turn 2. So now we go into British turn 3. So again, we're doing the motivation. So basically every single unit of the commandos were pinned down. So 4 rallied this lot. And then over here the HQ rallied on a 5. The mortars rallied on a 3. And then there was a re-roll required for this troop. So a 1 and a 4, and again Dave has got his aircraft in on a 5+, so that's pretty good. And he's allocating them to try and get rid of the MGs, as he doesn't want to risk his commandos getting mowed down by them. So we're going to British movement, and this is everything results. So no movement this side, but the right is swinging around, and the right flank of the Fallschrimjager going over to support the centre, and that's where we're at. Okay, so the commandos have moved across with a follow me, and they are trying to stay. They're trying to stay outside of 8 inches of the heavy machine guns because they're going to be targeted, and that's my reserve general enjoying his new squeaky toy that my wife just bought him, and the Shermans again are pushing back to enable the Typhoons to get it, and these guys might have to push back across or just double check the safety distance, and these commanders are starting to push up as well onto the Fallschrimjager, so a little bit more action starting to happen now. So here we go into shooting. Okay, so far the Typhoons failed to range in on all 3 attempts, so the MGs were okay. The Shermans fired their MGs, got nothing. A M10 managed to kill one of them, so that was quite good. The Shermans over here and the commandos that could actually see into the woods fired and managed to pin down the Fallschrimjager, but no kills. The commando mortars then ranged in by here. They could just about see that from where they were. Ranged in first attempt, got 2 hits thanks to their rerolls, and managed to kill another MG. So another team will be last standing for the Fallschrimjager. So they are again whittled down, the formation in general. So now we're going into German turn 3, and now they do have a chance for reserves. Okay, so for the motivations, all the pinned down teams have rallied. The guys in the woods got a 6, and the heavy machine guns got a 4. Their mortars almost run away, but the formation commander managed to drag them back to their mortars to keep them into the game, and the heavy machine guns are more than happy with that 6 to stick around. The only other thing that was a problem is Richard rolled a 2 for his reserves, so the self-propelled guns are still sitting back, not wanting to get involved, since they can see some Typhoons marauding around. So let's get into the movement, and Richard will most likely reinforce this central objective. Okay, so we're right, the Fallschrimjager are occupying the woods in the corner, so that puts a few of them contesting the objective. Some of them are still lagging behind, and most importantly, the Panzer Shrek is right at the back. He must have snagged it on some brambles. Over here, again, they're remaining still, and the heavy machine guns are remaining stationary as well. As Richard said, providing a decent speed bump for the advance, since everything has to go around them infantry-wise. So, we're going into shooting. Okay, so the mortars managed to range in on the units coming up here. Didn't hit any of the HQ, but hit a couple of the guys in the platoon, but no kills. 2 Panzer Shreks fired out, but only 1 hit, and then Dave rolled a 6, so bounced it off the front armour. The MGs fired out, and again no kills, and again no kills down here on this heavy machine gun team. So we're going into British turn 4, and they're again very close to the objectives now. Okay, so motivation step again, the commandos have rallied. They are just not stopping in their endless assault, and the Typhoons have come back as well. They're really eager to do something, so Davis sent them back in towards the back of the battlefield because otherwise he's shot blocking himself with all his units pushing forward, and these guys are going to clash very soon, I think. So here we go into British movement. Okay, so for movement, the commandos are starting to tighten the noose. This commando section has been assigned the mission of getting rid of the HMGs. Shermans are pushing up the road towards the objective, and this section in the HQ and the Shermans are also going on to the guys in the woods. And as I said earlier, Typhoons target back here. So all the Fallschrimjager are basically in the sights of the commandos at the moment, so let's see if there's any more casualties. Okay, so far the only thing that's managed to pin anything is the Typhoons and the mortars. A few more kills in the Fallschrimjager units. I think it was another team got killed by a rocket. Over here, the HMGs are still unpinned. The commandos just couldn't get enough hits, and the guys in the woods were 1 hit away from being pinned. So that's a bit unfortunate there. So it's up to Dave now whether he wants to do any assaulting. At least there'll be some cover for the boys here and a little cover from the MG at the back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, so going into this wood, the assault was repulsed. Just enough hits to stop them going in. No kills though. So they are pinned. Over here, that was a different story, so I can put the woods back now. The Fallschrimjager only got, I think, 1 hit with all the units that were there that were unpinned, and that resulted in all the commandos getting into combat. And basically what happened, first round, 4 Fallschrimjager bases went down to just 1 commando. Obviously they managed to counterattack. The commandos counterattacked, killed another 3 Fallschrimjager. The Fallschrimjager counterattacked, killed 1, and then the last remaining Fallschrimjager was ganged up and murdered by the commandos. As we've noticed, the 2+ assault is deadly, as it is called deadly assault, but it's been really effective for the commandos so far. So we're going into German turn 4. Okay, so far all the Fallschrimjager are being backed into this little corner on the objective. Or everyone rallied and everyone passed their last stands, but the self-propelled guns still don't want to come in. So again, bit of trouble here because they are desperately needed now. So we go into German movement and see what they are going to do. Okay, so for movement, with no tanks turning up to help out the Fallschrimjager Platoon, 1st Platoon and the HQ are moving to assault the commandos, leaving one team behind that is armed with a Panzerfaust, so next turn he can at least attempt to deny the Shermans having an easy kill on the mortars. So here we go now into the shooting phase. Okay, so out of the forest here, the MGs managed to get rid of 2 of the commando teams. Over here, not enough hits to pin the HQ team, and no kills either. So that's a bit of a problem. So still a few shots coming out, thanks to the SMGs from the HQ team. That's 6 alone there, and then there's another 4 from the remaining Commando Troop. So we'll go into an assault and see what happens. Okay, so the assault was stopped, unfortunately, and the executive officer of the Fallschrimjager has gone down as well. So again, unfortunate for the Fallschrimjager, and now we're going to British turn 5. Well, interesting thing happened over here. So the commandos, they're starting to waver a bit. They failed their rally. And then interestingly over here, this commandos failed their rally over here, and the formation commander couldn't even get them going. So basically, apart from the HQ commandos, the commandos have stopped. The aircraft are in, but we don't really know what to do because everything is too close to everything. Well, these guys will be closer, so the aircraft are just going to hover around and wait for the SPGs to come in because at the moment everything's too close. So we'll go into movement. Okay, so with all the commandos pinned, they've got out their buckets and spades and they've dug in, HQ included. They didn't fancy just sending those 2 in, so it's up to the remaining Shermans to do the job. So these guys have a bit of an easier task dealing with the mortars and just the 1 solitary Panzerfaust, and these 3 are just going to hose down the HQs stuck in the open. And that is it. The M10s have started moving into a better position if need be. So that was a cross-country dash. Plenty of movement. Now they're on the road, so they can go slightly faster next turn. So let's get into the shooting phase. Okay then, so the Shermans here fired their main guns into the guy with the Panzerfaust in the bushes and got rid of him. And these Shermans managed to get rid of the HQ team. The HMGs in the forest still stand strong, and no casualties on the rest of the platoon here. So we're going to move into an assault for the Shermans here. Okay, so the assault ends with the 2 Stummel mortars gone, but they did manage to bail one of the Shermans. So hopefully, if the HMGs can cling on for one more turn, maybe the Fallschrimjager can also cling on for another turn. So we'll see what happens in German turn 5. Okay, so motivation step. Step 1, rally the Fallschrimjager, pass. Step 2, stop the HMGs running away and break into formation. Pass. Bonus round, reserves, failed, but automatically 1 comes on. And look who's turned up. The Jagdpanzer IVs are there, and hopefully there'll be some dead Shermans. So it's up to these guys to decide what to do now as we go into turn 5. Okay, so with the Jagdpanzer IVs on, the Fallschrimjager are going to go and try and mop up the Shermans if they're still there. This objective isn't being contested yet, so the commanders will need to go on there and stay there for a turn, and the Stugs will be coming in next turn. So hopefully the Fallschrimjager can stick in there, bearing in mind though that these will probably rally next turn. But these heavy machine guns are doing well so far, so let's see how this goes in the shooting phase. Okay, so you can see here one of the Shermans has been bailed. That is not because of the Jagdpanzer IVs, that is from a guy with a Panzerfaust. These guys who've been waiting for 5 turns to turn up, completely fluffed their rolls and didn't hit a single thing. Only needing 4s, but no, they didn't want to do. So there's going to be an assault, and basically if the Germans go this side, he can't fire in defensive fire, so at least they're going to get one Sherman anyway. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so the end of the assault looks like this. The Fallschrimjager went in on the side, bailed out the... no, they killed the one Sherman with the Panzerschreck. The remaining tank then counterattacked, failed to kill anything, and then the Panzerschreck bailed him, which left no active tank team, so they all died. So that is it. So now we're going into turn 6 for the British. Okay, so the commandos here have passed the rally test, and the ones over here, so they can move and do their thing. And unfortunately, because these Shermans over there were the last remaining, they have to drive away because their formation last stand has failed. So Dave has ended up with just the commandos left and the M10s up the road. So still plenty to do for Dave to win the game, and it's just about Richard having a bit of luck here. So here we go into the movement phase. Okay, so the commandos are forming up to assault all of the remaining HMGs, while the M10s have trained their MGs on them to try and help and pin them this time. Meanwhile, the other section and the HQ are on the objective, so they need to tucker down there, and if the HMGs are not got rid of, they need to hold out. So here we go now into the shooting phase. Okay, so with the help of the... I'll get this out of the way so we can all see. So with the help of the 50 cals of the M10s and the rifles, these guys are finally pinned. Basically, the tale of this game so far is Richard cannot pass any infantry save. And out of the ones he's failed, Dave has never rolled a 6 on the rifle shots. He has with the 50 cals and other shots, yeah, so it's a mixture of no saves being made and no firepowers being made. So yes, so it's quite interesting. So we're now into the final assault. So can't be stopped because there are only 4 shots total from the Fallschrimjager, but hopefully they can take a few commandos with them as they go down. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so unfortunately the HMGs didn't hit anything as they went in, and 3 on each. The commandos wiped them out. And that is it. That is game is a minor victory. I'll put the score up on the last slide, as this is the last remaining Fallschrimjager team, so they will run away. So well done, Dave. Also well done, Richard. There's some rotten luck with those dice. I don't think I've ever seen so many 2s rolled for stuff just needing 3s, so it's quite rough. So asking Dave first, who was your man of the match?
To be fair, I think everybody performed pretty well. Obviously the planes come in, did a little bit of damage for me on the MGs. You know, the M10s did alright. But just those purely, I think that first assault literally obliterated Rich. But obviously he's a little bit unlucky with his dice rolls. Stop. But once we got in there.
So it was the section who assaulted into the woods and wiped out that platoon, yeah? Yeah, I think I don't think I've seen a Fallschrimjager platoon get wiped out like that before. And Richard, do you have a man of the match?
The MGs.
Yeah, I suppose they were a thorn in the side. Although I think quite an honourable mention to that platoon that wiped out the Sherman troop.
Yeah, I mean, especially after they'd lost quite a few men with the mortars earlier in the game. Yeah, they did quite well, but I think the SMGs basically held that whole flag for the whole game.
Yeah, I think that getting rid of them changed the margin of victory, which obviously we were all practicing for that campaign, would help out a lot in terms of how the thing progressed. Dave, anything different in your setup for the game? How you would have done anything differently?
I don't know. Perhaps would have taken a few more infantry units and sacrificed some tanks, because yeah, the Shermans did be good, to be honest. I would have kept the M10, but maybe added one less formation of Shermans and tried to get a few more commandos in.
Anything different for you, Rich?
Well, first of all, I'll give the I'll actually as well as man of the match, I'm going to do those three lined up against a wall and shot, which is my Jagdpanzer crews. Not turning up for the whole game, and then when they did, fluffing all their shots against the Shermans.
I suppose, well, the Stugs didn't even bother turning up.
Yeah. No, I did one massive mistake I made was my placing of my second platoon. I think I got a bit confused because I hadn't realised I'd have the MGs as a separate unit, so I'd only been thinking of like deploying 2 units. So I was wrong to stick them out on the right because they didn't do anything, and I should have moved them immediately then. Because it also left Dave was very clever in backing his commandos up, backing his Shermans up with the commandos. So he was able to take out my anti-tank gun very quickly. So yeah, I think if I did that again, I'd have that platoon over against the tanks. I mean, I thought it was quite cool how the roads worked, because that's what I thought would happen, that his tanks would come up the roads and his infantry would come across the rough ground. So I think I'd deploy that other platoon on the other side against the tanks. I don't think I could do anything against that. I was stunned that Jagdpanzer getting wiped out in the forest. Absolutely. I don't think I could have done anything there, because I thought they'd be alright just to hold up that attack. But that was incredible. Yeah, they played really well there, really well.
Yeah, I think the difference what I would have done, with you, Richard, maybe I would have put the heavy machine guns in ambush, and when I was looking, I would have probably put the Pak 40s on the junction where the Stummel mortars were. So as soon as the Shermans start coming down the roads, they get popped off. And I felt the commandos might have been the biggest threat. So as they come into like an open field, prop up the heavy machine guns and maybe get them that way. But then I also thought your self-propelled guns would have turned up earlier, which they never did. Yeah, it was a bit rough. Because I thought even though Dave would have known where the Pak 40s were all game, I felt the infantry would have been safe from the tanks for the fact that they're crammed with anti-tank weapons.
Yeah.
As it showed that one assault with the Fallschrimjager and the Shermans, they had one chance to do it, they got rid of them.
Yeah, that's something to think of in the future, yeah.
Yeah, especially with this kind of terrain, they can sneak up on them quite quickly. But yeah, no, it was a good game. I enjoyed watching that. Nice to see the commandos have a run out, and I think it does prove their points are worth what you get. I think hitting people on a 2+ is quite valuable.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'll take photos of the man of the matches and put the score up, and everyone stay safe and stay tuned for next game, where it's Mike versus Jimmy, which will be an interesting one.